All right, here we are back again. We're going to reread chapter 6 and we're going to look at it really closely. We're going to look at the details that are really going to help us understand sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic rocks and the rock cycle. All right. So we learned a lot about how the three rock types of rocks were formed and how they all go through the rock cycle and how it's never ending. All right. Okay, so remember our big question is how can changes in rocks over time be explained by the rock cycle? Okay, we are going to read again Earth's Building Blocks on page 52. All right. Earth's Building Blocks. We're going to start on page actually 53. It does start on 52, but we've already read that. We're going to go on to 53. Okay, just what are rocks exactly? Rocks are naturally occurring materials made of solid, non-living substances called minerals. We've learned a lot about these minerals the last few days. So really put that in your brain that these rocks are made of minerals. Think of minerals as the building blocks of rocks. Just like wood, you use it to build rocks. Minerals build rocks. Some rocks are formed from just one mineral. Most rocks, however, are combinations of two or more minerals. Make sure you're reading along with me. Minerals appear as different sized pieces or grains in rocks. Some rocks have very tiny mineral grains, and some rocks have a smooth, even texture from those tiny grains. Other rocks have larger mineral grains and a rougher texture. And we've seen some of those rocks in our classroom. Imagine hiking up a mountain and picking up rocks along the way. When you reach the top, you'll probably have quite a collection. Your rocks may have different colors and textures. Some may have stripes or layers. Some might be hard and others crumbly. Some have tiny grains, whereas others have large grains that glitter when they catch the light. All of this variety might seem confusing, yet geologists organize all rocks into three categories or basic types: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. All right, let's turn the page. I want you to think back that we know that the minerals are the building blocks of rocks, because that's really going to help you when you think of the different categories and how they change, and that will help you visualize that. Okay. Also, building blocks, that is a metaphor that the minerals are building blocks for rocks, because they're not really blocks, are they? It means what they're made out of. So, for example, protein is the building blocks of muscles. You have to have proteins to have muscles. Wood is the building block of maybe a house. Flour is the building block of bread or a cake. So those are all metaphors that help you picture what we mean by saying the building block. All right, we are going to look at page 54, and we are going to read it together. I'm going to read and you follow along. Let's start with igneous rocks. The most abundant, which means the largest class of rocks on Earth. Igneous rocks form when magma cools and solidifies. Okay, so The magma has to get cool and harden. That's what solidifies. It's one of our vocabulary words. When you think of igneous rocks, think of volcanoes. There are two basic types of igneous rocks. One type forms from magma that erupts onto Earth's surface as lava. Lava cools and hardens into rock. Now we know that the faster it cools, the smaller the mineral grains will be in the resulting rock. Obsidian, which we have seen, is an igneous rock formed from lava that cooled very quickly. So quickly there wasn't time for the minerals to even form grains. It looks like glass. As a result, obsidian is as smooth and shiny as glass. In fact, it is often called volcanic glass. Basalt is an igneous rock formed from lava that took longer to cool. It is typically a dark-colored rock. It has fairly small mineral grains that give it a fine-grained texture. Okay, I want you to look in the middle of that second paragraph where it's talking to us about the rocks and where it says, in fact, because this can help us help the information be clearer. It could be something really specific or maybe something even a little surprising. And so here it says that in fact, it is often called volcanic glass, all right? And so we are learning that obsidian cools so quickly, it has no mineral grains, and it is so smooth and shiny that it looks like glass. It is in fact like glass. So that in fact is giving us specific information, all right? The second type of igneous rock forms from magma that solidifies, hardens under Earth's surface. Magma cools very slowly because when it's under the surface, it's hotter and it's going to take longer to cool. So sorry, I lost my place. So magma cools very slowly when it's deep beneath the surface. Slow cooling leads to igneous rocks with relatively large mineral grains. They're the bigger ones that you can see. The slower the cooling, the larger the grains. And you can see the grains in these rocks versus these. The slower the cooling, the larger the grains. Granite is a common igneous rock that forms from magma that cooled within Earth's crust. Granite usually contains mineral grains that are large enough to see with the naked eye. And that means without like a microscope or a magnifying glass, you can just see it with your eye. That's an idiom. Like I've got a frog in my throat. Because really your eye isn't naked, but you can see it without a special tool. Okay, here we go. All right, so before we stop to answer some questions, just remember that the igneous rock forms when lava or magma cools and hardens. It's above ground, usually cools quickly, has smaller grains, below ground, larger grains, and a rougher texture, and you can see the grains. All right, so we're going to pause and then have you answer some questions.